Have you ever felt like you're making the same mistake over and over when life gets hard? Today, we're going to reveal the biggest pitfall that trips up even the most well-intentioned parents and how to avoid it. Our special guest, Jody Moore, a successful podcaster with over 20 million downloads, shares her secret to cultivating joy in both parenting and life. So get ready for some insights that will transform your approach to challenges and help you break free from self-defeating patterns. Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's rock and talk. Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest, Jody Moore, here with us. After earning a master's degree in adult education and training and working in a corporate setting as a leadership coach for years, Jody became a master life coach through the Life Coach School and has helped over 100,000 individuals become happier and more successful in all areas of their lives through her coaching practice. She specializes in helping moms with Christian values and in coaching other coaches to build successful businesses. She's best known today for her Better Than Happy podcast, which has over 17 million downloads, as well as her book of the same title. Excited to have you on today, Jody. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Kendra. I'm excited to be here.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself outside of that bio?
Bios are so stuffy and formal. And every time someone's reading it, I'm like, is that still current? It is, though. I think you got the current one. Yeah, I have 4 kids myself. My oldest is a freshman in college, down to a 3rd grader. And we live in North County, San Diego, California, with my kiddos, my husband, our dogs. And I found coaching myself, like you said in that bio, I was working in corporate as a leadership coach, but I started seeing the application of it personally for both myself and other people, and really felt called to get the tools to, especially women who are stay-at-home moms raising kids, or men. But I know for myself, I had a lot of friends who were stay-at-home moms at the time. Their husbands would get to go to leadership conferences or other types of things through their jobs where they were growing personally. And these women doing really challenging and important work were not getting that kind of development. And so I started my business to just answer that call for others, but also for myself. My job was challenging at times, but my job at home was way more challenging, and I had fewer resources and support. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 11 years, and I love it.
I was actually looking that up. So have you had your podcast for 11 years then?
It's been going on 10 years with the podcast now, but I started the business a little bit before that. Yeah.
So 11 years of coaching then, is that right? Before we got on, I was talking to Jody about what a mentor she's been, even though I haven't really met her before, but had sent you a few different emails being like, I just want to be you when I grow up, essentially. Oh. And you were very gracious about it, but not doing that at the time. And it turns out you are doing that now. You are coaching people how to be coaches, or how would you say that?
Yeah, I'm helping other coaches in a couple capacities. One, on the business side, a lot of coaches are passionate about coaching, but a little more reluctant about marketing and sales and things. And so I love helping them bring the two together so they can make the impact they want. And then I'm just starting this year to train coaches as well. It's been really fun. Yeah.
Amazing. And yeah, I was just a little bit too early, but
Yeah.
love that
You
you're
were
doing
ahead of
that
the
now.
times.
Yeah, I knew what you're going to be doing. But that's amazing. And I have been a big fan of your podcast for quite a while. I think that's actually what got me on this trajectory. Like, I want to help influence people, increase those positive ripples, putting that out in the world. And
Yeah.
same, I love how you talked about you really felt inspired to help stay-at-home moms and help in that space, especially when their husbands are off doing these other things. And I'm putting words in your mouth a little bit because I've listened to your podcast, but
Mhm.
maybe those that feel a little bit lost, like trying to help them in their different challenges. Can you, just for listeners that don't know, what type
Mhm.
of women do you help specifically? So I know it's stay-at-home moms, but is there
Mhm.
certain things you like to talk about a lot in your
Yeah,
coaching?
I describe what I do as mental and emotional fitness, right? I'm not a therapist like you are, Kendra. I'm not trained in certain diagnoses and mental illness, if you will. I'm trained in mental and emotional fitness. So, like the personal trainer at the gym wouldn't be able to put your arm in a cast if you had a broken arm, but can certainly help you strengthen your physical health and thereby hopefully prevent future injuries and also just improve your quality of life. Just again, a personal trainer does that physically. I do that mentally and emotionally. And so all kinds of things come up in my coaching program. I talk a lot about being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so I tend to attract and put out there that I can bring your faith into this work. And so I have a lot of clients who are members of that faith or similar conservative Christian values, if you will. But we coach on everything from parenting challenges, what's going on with my teenager, to marriage stuff and just overall confidence, feeling like you don't fit in with your friends or getting over some kind of a grudge, maybe a disagreement in a relationship, all the way to like goals, people wanting to eat better, lose weight, grow their businesses. So any of this kind of stuff that comes up, any challenge we have, whether it's a challenge that life gave us or a challenge that we've created by setting a goal, requires mental and emotional fitness. And that's where coaching really comes in. So,
And how did you decide to go that coaching route? It just seems like such a
yeah.
big shift.
Yeah. So at the end of my time in corporate, the company that I had worked for 15 years, I was doing leadership coaching. I started to fall in love with coaching, but the company was going through massive regulatory changes. And I knew I was probably going to get laid off. Almost
Yeah.
everybody was getting laid off. And I could see it coming. I had three young kids. One was 6 months old, and then I had a 6-year-old and 7-year-old. So I was, oh, gosh, is this my sign from God or whatever that I should stay at home with my kids now? And so I lost my job. I was trying to stay open to what is the next thing that I'm meant to do, and ended up going through coach training because that was the only thing I knew I was passionate about.
Mhm.
And once I got through that training on the other side of it and learned a little bit about what it looks like to open a coaching practice, to build a business, to get clients, it seemed doable to me. It seemed hard, but I could see how the dots connected. And so I just dove in more than anything out of a passion project and needing something to challenge me and fill my time. And it turns out there were a lot of women out there who really resonated with the work. And so it was rewarding and fulfilling enough that I just kept going. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe I just wasn't in that space enough to really be aware yet. But when I first started listening to you, I remember thinking, wait, what is this life coach stuff? I'm not really sure what
Oh,
this is
yeah.
all about. Did you get it in the beginning when it was just becoming a thing?
People still think that about it, to be
Oh,
honest. I
really?
still get a lot of funny looks when you say you're a life coach. And the reason why is because it's not regulated, right? As a
Mhm.
therapist, when you say you're a therapist, that means I know that you've been through really rigorous training and certain requirements, and then you're operating within certain guidelines to be able to do what you do. And so it gives you credibility there alone, on top of, I'm sure you're great at what you do, but you're a regulated industry, right? Coaching
Mhm.
is not that, which means anybody can say they're a coach. We don't really know what that means because there's no
Mhm.
restrictions, there's no required training. And so it's normal and even healthy that we would be a little skeptical of it because there's no regulating body. So I always tell people, when you're going to hire a coach, you need to really learn about their philosophy of coaching. But coaches should be putting content out there anyway to help people, just like you're doing as a therapist. But We want to help people in today's world. There's no reason not to share what you know. It helps build your business, and it helps the people who will never be able to pay you even. So you want to listen to coaches. You want to make sure that you like their philosophy. You want to make sure that they seem to have some kind of experience or training or something that gives them some tools. And so, yeah, I would say when I got into it, it wasn't very well known within like the world of the LDS church anyway. It was very, what? I think that has shifted a little bit maybe, but yeah, it's still an odd thing to say. And like I said, rightfully, people should be a little skeptical when they hear that.
Honestly, Jody, I think you're one of the reasons why we do know about it in the Latter-day Saint community is because you put it out there. We're like, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate
it. I mentioned that you have a podcast called Better Than Happy. Can you just tell us briefly what you think is actually better than happiness and how we can get more of that in our lives?
Yeah. So this title, my podcast has been through a couple of different titles because I'm not good at choosing names, to be honest. So I just pick one and then I give myself permission to change it. And so I landed on this one, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago that I really like. I feel like it really encompasses what I teach, which is I'm all for happiness. I'm all for people pursuing happiness. Happiness is certainly better than a lot of other alternatives. Specifically, being happy is better than making a lot of money or being really skinny. You don't want to pursue things at the expense of your happiness. But I feel like happiness is not also necessarily the end game. I think what's better than happiness is growth. Growth requires discomfort and mistakes and being challenged at times. I think what's better than happy is because it depends on what your definition of happy is. I heard this definition of happiness that I really liked, which was that feeling that you don't want anything to be different than it is. And I can relate to those feelings in moments. I had an experience just the other day. I was at Disneyland with my kids, which is supposed to be the happiest place on earth. But I was noticing how there were a lot of people walking around the park with their cell phones on, like videoing just what it looked like to walk through the park. And I was thinking, are you really going to watch that later? But anyway, they wanted so much to capture the feeling, right? And at this one moment, there's a gentleman in front of me holding his phone up high in the sky, trying to capture just walking through this crowd because the sun was setting. And it was really beautiful. It was just like the perfect temperature. The sun was going down. We're in this magical place. And I had this moment of it's so amazing to be alive right now. I just am so happy to be here on planet Earth. I'm amongst all these people. I don't know these people. We all have different challenges and things, but right now the sun is going down. It's making this golden glow in the sky. We're walking to ride in a roller coaster or something with my family. Like in that moment, happiness. I didn't want anything to be any different than it was right then. Yeah. That's such a beautiful feeling. But imagine if we just felt that way all the time. It would actually become really boring and we wouldn't even be able to appreciate it. So, right, moments after that, we get to the credit coaster. My 11-year-old son had just built up the courage to ride it for the first time ever. And we'd gotten the fast pass and we were going to get on this ride and we're about to board and they say, sorry, the ride is closed. Everyone please exit. So in that moment, now you're like, oh man, what if we don't get to ride it? And we were just here and how are we going to get our fast pass back? And of course, there's something we want to be different. Now that is also natural, healthy, normal. If we never wanted anything to be better or different, we wouldn't innovate. We wouldn't come up with creative ideas. We wouldn't have any reason to reach out and connect with one another. And like I said in the beginning, we wouldn't grow personally. So what's better than happiness is allowing for both. It's allowing for the moment of right now, this is perfect. I don't want anything to be different. And then the next moment, I wish this part had gone differently. And then showing up in life for it, not letting it ruin, not saying that was a terrible day at Disneyland. That was an amazing day at Disneyland, but there's both, right? And part of the reason the good times are so good is because of the contrast of the parts that aren't ideal. And that's what I'm trying to help people really embrace with Better Than Happy.
I love that perspective. It almost reminds me of Gordon B. Hinckley's quote about, I think it was him that, unless he was quoting somebody else, but life is not always going to be these amazing sunsets. And most of us are just going to be ordinary. I think he was speaking to the same thing. Like it's still beautiful. It's still part of the
Yeah,
process.
I think I know the one you're talking about. He says something at the end that trick is to enjoy the ride. Right?
Exactly.
Even though there
Mhm.
are all these things, yeah, he says it
Mhm.
more beautifully than what I am right now. But yeah, it's true. And to also let the parts that are challenging evolve you, for lack of a better word. I was recently watching the documentary, I think it's on Netflix, about Martha Stewart. Have you seen this
Uh,
one?
I have not.
Okay, it's really fascinating. She ends up serving time in prison for tax evasion. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, by the end of her 7-month stay, at first she's really scared and just keeps to herself. But by the end, she is teaching the other inmates how to plant a garden with the very little resources she has. But she's able to get a few seeds or something, and there's a little bit of soil somewhere that they let her garden in. And she's teaching them how to take the prison food and do things with it to make it a little bit more tasty. And like, I was like, she's in prison and she can't help herself. She's Martha Stewart. And that's just what I think is, can we be, not that we have to always be our best selves, right? But can we lean into becoming and trying on in moments being our most ideal self, even when times are challenging and circumstances aren't lining up how we
Right.
wish?
Viktor Frankl talks about that. Like, obviously, most of
Yes.
us will not be in a Holocaust or any of those things, but really that blooming where we're planted concept. But I love how
Yeah.
you talk about growth. That's very much what I talk about to my listeners: growth, fulfillment. Tony Robbins talks a lot about that, about how
Mhm.
progress equals happiness, and very much what you're speaking to as well. But I love the part where you're like, it requires mistakes and discomfort, and that leaning in, and to discredit that is kind of missing the mark a little bit. I have a client that she's always, what is wrong? Just going through these different things. I'm like, that's a part of life. That's just the byproduct of being on this earth, is we
Yeah.
experience these things, normalizing the human experience a little bit.
e-
And it sounds like you talk
Exactly.
about that a lot then too.
Yeah, that's right.
Love it. So when it comes to your professional journey as both a podcaster, a coach, an author now, what's one thing you've learned about yourself that you never expected?
One
You're like,
thing so many things I've learned about myself and I'm still learning. I would say I spent a good deal of my life trying not to be someone who was needy or high maintenance. I have an older brother and I was really close with him and his friends. And so I heard them talk about chicks as being high maintenance and how that was a bad thing. And so I was like, note to self, don't be high maintenance. And occasionally, my dad would say things like, she just has a lot of needs that aren't being met. And I just took this mental note, don't be needy, don't be high maintenance. And as I've pursued different things in my life, I've come to just accept that I am very needy and I'm very high maintenance. And maybe I'm unique in this way, or maybe we just all are. I don't know. But when I finally embraced, it's okay. Like, human beings have needs, and maybe I have more than most. I don't know. But when I stopped trying to not be those things and I just embrace that I am, then I figure out ways to meet most of my own needs and to take care of my quote unquote high maintenance self. And not that I don't get a lot of it from my husband or loved ones or what have you, but I don't rely on them anymore. And I certainly don't shame myself out of them. If I'm needing connection, I'll reach out to someone and say, I just really need to connect with someone. Do you have a minute to talk? Or I don't know. I just learned that letting myself be needy and high maintenance has served me so much better in my life. I had somebody recently at a business mastermind I'm in say to me that he sees me as somebody who ignites people. And he described me as a spark plug. He's like, some people are igniters. You're an igniter. You get people fired up. And when he described me as a spark plug, I realized, well, that's why I spend so much time meeting my needs, because I have to keep my spark. I can't do what I'm doing. And I'm actually not a spark plug. Like, I get a spark from somewhere too. And that's been good for me to understand and to embrace in the end.
it sounds like a lot of what you're talking about is ownership. Like, you don't require other people that meet your needs, even though you're willing to reach out to them, like your husband or otherwise. And then at the other end, you said that you are needy and high maintenance, but it almost feels like you have just found a way to meet many of those needs and not be that victim, but take that ownership. I don't know if I necessarily see that as needy, but I guess I can see what you're saying too with that self-care. Like you recognize you can't neglect yourself if you want to show up as that leader and your best self. Am I understanding that right?
That's right. And I discovered that especially as I grew my business and as a coach and as a podcaster and all that. But even as a mom, when my kids were younger and before I really understood this work and had internalized it, their kids need so much, especially little kids. They're so dependent on us. And I get it. It's hard. I used to cringe when people would be like, self-care is really important. And you're like, that sounds nice. When am I supposed to fit that in with everything else? And if you don't have money and you don't have time, you don't have energy, like the kids feel like they take everything out of you. And for some people listening, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your job, maybe you're caring for a spouse or a parent or somebody. Like, I get it. There are ways that we want to serve and give that feel immediate and feel like they take everything from us. So I used to have the mom guilt if I did anything for myself. If I was going to go to the gym, and I remember putting my what are my oldest kids, but they were little at the time, putting them in the daycare at the gym, and they hated it. And they would cry and they didn't want to go to the daycare. And they were just, I have very clingy children who never liked being away from me. And I would feel guilty about that. And I think that's normal. We don't want to see our kids struggle, but I just learned after a while, there's no way I can be a good mom to them and not go to this class at the gym. And back to what we said about better than happy. Not only is it okay for me to not always be happy, it's okay for them to not always be happy too. I have to take care of my own needs. Not only is it okay, it is necessary for me to be the mom I want to be. And I don't know how all the time to fit it in or to make it happen. All I know is it's just as important as taking care of everyone else. And for me, I label it needy because I used to have such a negative association with that word. And I've just embraced it as like a beautiful part of who I am.
That actually really resonates with me too. I had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. Same message. I wanted to be the one that they were all impressed with, more of a tomboy. Now I'm still a little uncomfortable about I never get my nails done, anything like that. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be high maintenance. So it totally resonates, but being able to let that go.
I love the double standard there too, that we weren't supposed to be high maintenance, but we're supposed to look great all the time.
Yeah. How do we maintain that? Impossible standard.
Just saying.
The part that you talked about with kids, this is super hard. I see this with my clients all the time. How you said, it's okay for them to not always be happy too. Because I see a lot of my clients, which are your clientele too, very similar, where they just feel, and we're almost going to the other extreme. At one point, they were like free range chickens. And now this generation, it's like we're helicopter parents where we can never let them be uncomfortable or not totally tended to. And we have this major mom guilt that you talked about. So what do you coach your clients when they are feeling stuck in that? Yeah, self-care is good, but there's still those moments though. Like, how do you know that balance that you're not getting too far on one side or the other? Because I'm in your position, not as far advanced as you are, but it's really hard to not feel depleted at the end of the day sometimes and feel like, okay, now I'm meeting my boundaries with my kids and I'm here with them, but I'm so not here with them. I'm so exhausted. Anything you could say to that?
Yeah. I don't think we ever do know exactly if we're doing it right. I just think that, like, I used to think the order of priorities was I take care of my kids and my family and my house, and then me too. I matter too. But I've flipped it instead. I'm like, first I take care of me. And when I go to plan my day or my life or to decide whether or not to say yes to signing up for another sport or a play date or whatever it is, it starts with me and what I need. That goes in my calendar first. And then I go to what do I have the time and capacity and resources to be able to do for my family. I still am able to give them way more because I'm a spark plug showing up instead of a burned out match showing up. And that's just for me personally, the way it works best. I do think that in answer to your question about how do I coach clients and things, they're personal decisions, right? So it's not to say that my approach is best for everybody by any means. What I have people do is stop and take a look at what do you feel when you think about it that way? So for me, when I think about, I have to put my priorities or my needs first. and then I'm going to have more to give my family. I feel lit up. I feel inspired. I feel empowered. I feel energized. It brings me alive. If somebody else doesn't feel that way, it's not the right way to think about it. I really do believe that the right path for us, quote unquote, and if we want to get religious, even like what the Lord wants for me, feels, I don't want to say good, because that would negate the fact that there's still a lot of challenge and fear. But like when I set out to build my business, or maybe you can relate to this when you launch your podcast or started your therapy practice or what have you, it lights you up to think about it. Even though it's scary, even though at times it's overwhelming, I feel lit up about it. And that's what I'm always trying to coach people through, is which decision do you feel lit up about? Let me give one other example here, because we tend to make decisions from trying to avoid something scary or bad, right? Do I do this thing with my kid? Let's say, do I go on this girls trip that I had planned, or do I stay home because my kid is in the soccer tournament finals and I'm going to miss the playoffs or whatever if I go, right? This type of a decision. So we start making decisions from what would be worse. It's going to be a bummer to miss my girls trip. I'm going to be sad. I'm going to feel like I'm missing out, etc. But if I miss the playoffs, my kid might be disappointed. They might be telling the therapist about it one day. It could mess them up. Right. So we make decisions like this. So what I always coach people is, wait a second. What if either way, it's amazing? Either way, it could work out great. Like, what if you put some faith in yourself, your child, God, the universe, whatever you want to put faith in? Let's put some faith in some things and decide that either way, it could be for everybody's best interest. If you chose to go on that girls' trip and your child was disappointed, that might be a great opportunity for your child to learn how to deal with some disappointment. And maybe, sometimes I'll even dream up stuff in my head. Like, maybe they're going to have a sad moment where they're feeling down, and then a friend is going to reach out and say something that's going to really connect with them. And they're going to, for years, tell the story about the time they were down and the friend said the thing and how that changed them and that taught them now to be nice to people. Like, that's all possible, right? It could be amazing for your kid, even though there would be negative emotion. And likewise, what if you don't go on that girls' trip and you're sad about it, but it turns out that while they were gone, there's something else that happened at home that if you hadn't been home, you would have not been there for. And I'm not saying we're trying to predict what's going to happen. I'm saying show your brain it could be amazing either way, instead of making the decision from it's going to, either choice is bad news. Like, no, either choice is great news. Now what? And to retrain your brain to see the world that way then helps you create a world that is that way in the end.
Yeah. Do you mind if I use a personal example to see
No,
if
please.
Yeah. Okay. So yesterday I was fasting about, maybe you're like this, I don't know. I have to back up a step, but I am a very motivated, high achiever, love just getting out there. Love it. Lights me up. But sometimes it can become a vice, this superpower of mine. So I've been fasting and praying about, okay, is it time to go get a PhD? There's also Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know much about him.
Love him.
Oh, love him. We really want to do this Cancun training that I've been wanting for a while. So both of these things, but my daughter is going to college in the fall. There's a lot of big things, braces, a new van, all of these things are coming up. And, you know, that anxiety is, oh, shoot, am I being selfish here? What should I do? So what I'm understanding you saying is we choose our narrative. So it could be like either one could potentially be good. Either one could potentially be bad. But then what? What's that next step? If you're still feeling like, but I don't know if I should do that to my family. And is this really realistic? And what would you say?
I like the part where you said either one could potentially be good, but then we're going to take off that last part where you said either one could potentially be bad. Because here's the truth. Either one is going to be 50-50.
Okay.
That's the concept I like to live by, is 50-50. Like, life is meant to be 50-50, actually. Half positive and great and expansive and happy, and half challenging, frustrating, difficult, overwhelming, stressful. And that's not life, that's our brains. Okay? But 50-50. So that includes for you, and that includes for your family and all the people in this story, if you will, this situation, this scenario. Then when you ask the question, am I being selfish? That's where I go back to selfish in the way that most of us want to avoid, is like harming people in order to benefit ourselves, like ripping off the elderly through a fraud scheme where we text them saying we're their bank account. That's selfish. So what your decision here that you're trying to make about going to a training or a program that you feel called to is not selfish, not like intentionally harming someone, right? For your own gain. If it's the kind of selfish where you're like, I'm putting my needs at the forefront in this decision, and some of my family members may have to make sacrifices or may feel some emotion about it. That's the kind of selfishness I am always encouraging women to go towards, because that's going to, again, turn you into the spark plug that ignites you, which helps you better ignite your family. Now, does that mean the answer is always go to the Cancun thing? Not necessarily. But again, I would ask you, like, which one lights you up? If it could be amazing either way. And by amazing, opportunity for growth, opportunity for expansion for you and your children and your husband.
Yeah.
Then which one do you choose?
I'm totally leaning towards Cancun and PhD.
Yeah.
And I also know there's a price to, have you heard of how a lot of people get divorced during advanced degrees?
Oh, no, I didn't know this.
But this is also a thought, and I know what you say about thoughts. Your approach kind of reminds me of CBT. Do you know cognitive behavioral therapy?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Like
yeah,
you can control your thoughts. Yeah.
And knowing that, if the stats say there's a high level of divorce during advanced degrees, okay, good to know. But that all the more reason to decide, what if I used my PhD time to grow closer in my marriage? What if we used it? Because that means it's challenging, right? It's challenging to have one person in school that long and devoting themselves to something and maintain your relationship. But when challenge comes up, that's when we have the potential to grow even closer.
The therapist side of me is like also counseling myself, like you can choose whether if you want to be fear-based or otherwise. That is helpful though, like having somebody to talk through it. Another question I have for you, really, Jody, I have a lot of questions for you, but I love it. I know we're limited. But just in your life, like you really do, very similar to what I was just saying, have your hands in kind of everything. How do you not overdo it? And when you do, what does course correcting look like for you?
I am pretty ambitious and driven, and I like to go fast. So I like to see what's possible. But one of the things that helps is I'm not a perfectionist. Mm-hmm. So there are times when I have to let something be good enough and walk away from it. I definitely have found myself over the last year probably overdoing it in certain ways where I can feel myself get run down and tired and start to not have as many ideas and start to become resentful. And that's always a sign to me. And I'm not perfect at not doing that. But I will say I try to keep things simple. I don't make it perfect, first of all. Nothing's perfect. My house isn't always spotlessly clean. I'm not perfect at any of it. But also, I try to keep it simple. So in my business, for example, as we grow, I'm constantly managing to keep it as simple as possible. A lot of coaches, for example, are like, we have all these clients. That's great. Now, what if we did a live retreat? And maybe we should create a course and sell that too. Because there are people who would buy that course that might not sign up as clients. And then what if we have a group option in addition to one-on-one, because that would be cheaper for some people. Before you know it, they have 7 offers. And I just know that just runs away from you. All of it requires maintenance and attention and customer support and marketing and all that. So I'm always like, no, this is what we're doing. This one thing, or maybe 2 things. Right? And how do we keep it as simple as possible? And when it gets complicated, I'm not afraid to change things. I'm not afraid to stop doing what we've been doing or start something brand new or cancel it or refund money even. I've done all of these things before in the name of, nope, I just realized that's going to get too complicated and I'm not willing to do that because I do value spending a lot of time with my kids while they're home and other things. So simple. Even my home routines, I try to keep as simple as possible, like dinners, for example. I'll have routines like Monday night is Italian, Tuesday is Mexican, Wednesday is some kind of meat, Thursday is breakfast for dinner, and Friday is pizza. And then I just switch up, what do we have? Because I know that the decision fatigue and the amount of options that my brain has are what ultimately wear me down. So I'm constantly like, how do we simplify all of this?
Yeah. I think that's a space that I'm in my life too. When it starts to get cluttery, you're like, okay, course correcting, something has to change. And you reminded me when you talked about that, like it's good enough to have that be work. The first time I heard you talk about that, you're the first one that talked about it. That I remember listening to, and I was like almost offended. I was like,
yeah,
what?
I love that. People do feel that way.
Yeah. No, that is not okay. But that is really the way to go. Otherwise, you get stuck and you don't really progress if you're just seeking that perfection. And I didn't even realize what a perfectionist I was until I started practicing that.
Got to be, right? Like in school,
Yeah.
they're like, first we were always told, try to get A's. And then we got wiser and started saying things like, it doesn't matter as long as you tried your best, just try your best. And I've taken it a step beyond that even. And I'm like, really? Your best is not necessary on most things. There's a couple things, and sometimes when you're going to want to put your best in, but you don't always have to do your best. Did you know this? There are certain things where just good enough is good enough. And that's really hard for people to wrap their heads around sometimes because of how we've been conditioned.
Absolutely. So what do you say instead of try your best? Or is there a phrase you say to your kids?
Yeah. So my kids will come to me sometimes and show me like they want to show me their grades or whatever. And I'm like, that's so awesome. But if they've gotten all A's, I say things like, wow, it seems like school is a little too easy for you. Should we move you up a grade? And they know I'm kidding, but I use it to go, just remember, I'm so proud of you. Good job. I'm proud of how hard you've worked and everything. But just remember, there are going to be times in life when you're doing something hard enough that you can't get the A, or that doesn't feel like it needs your full effort. And that's okay too. And I just try to cushion it with things like that. I have a daughter who is very driven, and she'll be like, I think I should take this AP class, for example. And I'm like, okay, maybe. Why? Let's talk about it. And in the end, she just thinks she should because she can and because all of her friends are doing it. And I'll always say, if you want to do it, I totally support you. But I don't hear a reason, like she's going to hair school next year. You might need that history credit one day, but you don't right now. And I'm happy to pay for the history credit and go through the class when you get to college if you want to just relax and have a little bit more fun your senior year instead of taking that AP class. Like, I'm trying to help her make decisions from a bigger picture rather than just because I could, I should, because I don't think that has served most of us in the end. And now there are some people who maybe are not putting in their effort and maybe they need more of that message. But I know, especially as women and as high achievers, we tend to take it to a place that doesn't always serve us. So I just think making the decision from a full big picture, what are we actually trying to do? What is our reason why? And
getting that deeper level and really exploring it just instead of just going along with what people are doing, whether it's our peers or the culture or whatever that is. Exploring that.
That's right.
I appreciate that. Jody, you've helped a lot of people through some major challenges, done a lot of coaching. What's the biggest mistake that you see a lot of people make when things get really hard?
The one I see the most, and maybe this is because by the time people come to me, they usually have listened to my podcast a little bit or read my book. And we have a lot of people teaching really amazing tools about the power of thought work and self-help and all of that. And so I think the biggest mistake I see is that people take tools and they turn them into weapons and start using them against themselves. So we do this with therapy or coaching. We also do this with religion or just good advice, nutrition advice. We take what is a useful tool, and I always say it's like taking a pair of scissors, which is really useful if you want to cut paper or something. But then we also can actually injure ourselves with scissors if we're not careful really easily. And we can harm others with scissors. So when I teach people, listen, you get to choose how you're going to think, which means you get to choose how you're going to feel, and you get to choose who you're going to be and what you're going to create in your life. It's basically what I try to empower people to understand. Then when they're struggling, they're unable to choose something more positive. They come to me saying, I know I shouldn't be thinking this. I know I shouldn't have this bad attitude. I know I should be showing up differently. I'm like, well, we're not going to take those scissors and jab yourself in the neck with them. That's what we do, is we judge ourselves. We do it with religion. I know I'm not supposed to make that choice, or I'm supposed to have a good attitude about my church calling or whatever I'm supposed to. It often sounds like that. Or they'll come to me wanting me to coach them out of it. I'm stressing, I'm worried about my child, and I know I don't have to be worried about my child. Can you help me find a new thought? And the first step isn't to decide that you shouldn't be and find a new thought. The first step is to embrace, of course you are, because you're a human being with a human brain. And we struggle sometimes, and we have stories and visions in our head of what could go wrong, and we judge ourselves and we judge others, and we say we're going to do something and then we don't do it. Yeah, welcome to being a human being. And so that's the biggest mistake. If you're going to use it to judge yourself or to judge others, that's the other thing. I just wish my kids understood that they can think whatever they want and then they'll feel better. I'm like, why? Your kids are on their own journey. Let them figure it out on their own time, in their own way. It's okay for them to struggle, right? So it's taking a tool, turning it into a weapon. We obviously do this with religion when we're judging one another or shaming ourselves. So I'm always telling people, no, the first step is just curiosity and fascination and a deeper level of awareness.
Right.
Oh, look what I'm doing there. That's fascinating. Huh. Apparently, that's where I need to be for today or this week or this year. I don't know. Like, apparently, this is what's going on for me. And that's okay. It's curious. It's fascinating. It's interesting. It's not the only option. I'm not saying I'm going to stay here forever, but for a minute, let's stay in this and let's embrace me and love me instead of judge me. Let's go, hey, like I talk to myself all the time. Hey, Jody, I see that you're struggling. That's okay. I got you. It's okay to struggle. Yes, it's my thinking creating it, but that doesn't mean I should be thinking differently. Gosh, it seems like you're having a rough time. You want to just be down today? I got you. We'll be down. It's okay. I'm not mad at you. So it sounds like that. And when you can embrace and love yourself where you are, then you have the ability to change what you're thinking. It's so ironic. It feels like if I just embrace myself, then I'm going to stay here forever. But no, we stay there forever when we're resisting and shaming and judging ourselves. So that's the biggest mistake that I'm always trying to help people out of.
I think it's really interesting that you said that because that's essentially what I do in counseling all the time. But your inner voice is like the me in session where you had that empathy, that unconditional love, that curiosity. You're normalizing the human experience. You're just letting go of that control. And then you're able to change or move forward, but not beforehand. And that's very much how I talk my clients through it. Have you ever heard of shooting on yourself?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, we do it all the time. Right?
Yeah. And that is the power of working with a therapist or somebody, right? Is when you tell somebody about what's going on and they're not like, what? I went to a therapist once and I remember thinking he's going to be so shocked when I tell him what I've done and what's happening in my life. And he wasn't. He was just like, what? I'm like, no, did you hear me? Did you hear what I said? And just having somebody not freak out, panic, judge me, be like, oh, this is really serious. I don't know what we're going to do about this. Just normalize it. And then all of a sudden you realize, okay, this is not the end of the world. I'm just a human being. That is what I'm teaching people to do for themselves as well, hopefully. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful and incredible. And everybody needs to hear it. And sometimes they can hear it better for somebody else. And I love that you're to that point where you can be your own therapist, offer that, and then work through it. One thing I love about you is how you spread those positive ripples. You're a leader, that forerunner, especially in the Latter-day Saint community. What about other people that are wanting to become leaders and wanting to lean in, but they feel like imposters? They feel terrified of moving forward. What suggestions or advice would you have for them to lean in and to embrace that?
I would say that fear is, in most cases, an indicator that you're headed towards something really amazing that you're maybe even called to do for anyone that has a spiritual belief like that. I think we think, okay, when I start pursuing my dreams, my visions, my goals, it's going to feel amazing because I'm finally going to be doing the thing I want to do. But the truth is, it feels amazing at times, but it also feels really scary. And that imposter syndrome is, again, natural human thing because your identity is changing. You are growing. You're gaining new skills. You're gaining new experience. You're making an impact maybe in somebody's life or in your family's life or the people that you come in contact with. So it's natural to feel like, oh man, are people going to find out who I really am? Yeah. The truth is you really are. You've always been that person that's capable of that, and you'll always continue to grow and change. And so I guess what I'm saying is a lot of times fear feels like a sign that we should turn back or quit. Fear means you're on the path to something extraordinary. Now, the reason I say most of the time is because if I'm on a hike and I see a bear and I feel fear, that is the kind of fear that means, yeah, you should probably get out of there. You should probably get to safety. But most of the fear that we're experiencing in our lives is not that type of fear. It's not legitimate adrenaline pumping through your body kind of fear that we need. It's a construct in our minds of, oh no, what if something goes wrong? But really nothing has gone wrong usually. And so you have to know the difference. If you need real fear, there's a book I read years ago called The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. And he talks about this, that fear is a gift, right? But we don't have very much danger like that in our lives. And yet we've evolved with this gene to generate fear. And so we've turned it into, what if somebody judges me on social media? which is not the same thing as running into a bear in the woods, but your brain doesn't know the difference.
Right.
And so coaching helps a lot with that. But I would just say imposter syndrome personally, like I still feel it sometimes come up. Sometimes I'll be doing an interview like this, talking about something, and there's this voice in my head that's like, oh, you don't even know what you're talking about. And I just let it be there. I don't necessarily try to get rid of it, but I also don't give it much weight or credit because I'm like, it's true and it's not true. It's true. I did just make that up because that's what came to my head and that's what felt like the right thing to say, but we're all just making it up. And it's also not true. Like I do have some experience and some knowledge and some training and some education here. So I know that thoughts like that are both true and not true. And so I'm not scared of them and I don't take them seriously. And that's what I would offer to people, to just go take little steps. You don't have to jump off the cliff overnight. Take little steps. The fear will be there. It's okay. Keep going because, and this is the last thing, is like, we need people to do whatever they feel called to do.
Yeah.
Whatever you feel called to do, whatever you feel excited about or just curious about. Maybe you're super passionate or maybe you're just curious and you're afraid to tell anyone. That is the path to your best life and your best contribution. And I believe God created us to contribute. Yeah. And we won't feel fulfilled if we're not doing it. And so we need you to go towards that, whatever that is. Amen.
Yeah. Especially as you're talking about fulfillment, it's totally my thing. I couldn't write fast enough, but like we're called to contribute. Like we need more people to do whatever they're called to do. And I love also how you talked about gift of fear. Yeah. And I've talked a lot about that on my podcast too, how I really do believe that anxiety and depression, all of these things, they are gifts because they often propel us to change. Whereas that just cushy kind of living really doesn't motivate us very often. I've learned to lean in and love it and normalize it, just like you do in your head for yourself. So very well said, very beautiful. And I just want to give you like 12 amens to that. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
And just last but not least, what's one way that you've created personal fulfillment in your life recently that you're proud of, that you'd like to share?
The month of February turned out to be a month of a lot of self-care for me. And I didn't actually even realize it. I did go on a girls' trip to Mexico and I knew that was going to be fulfilling. I do that every year after the holidays. But I also went to a couple things that I thought were for my business that turned out to be more for me. A conference that was a very like kind of meditation, breath work, visualization type of model I was taught that was really impactful. And then a business mastermind, I referenced that in the beginning, that ended up just amazing connections with people. And yes, we were talking about our businesses, but also we were really just talking about ourselves and evolving ourselves. And I don't normally do 3 things in 1 month like that, but I'm feeling like I really needed it. And I'm feeling fulfilled because of the time I put into regenerating myself. And now I'm excited to go give that back to my family, to my clients, to others.
Oh, so beautiful. I love that you do that. February is actually the month that I least look forward to. So I'm trying to do that same thing, fill it with beautiful things. Yes. And you're talking about like a trip with girls. I'm like, oh,
highly recommend. Highly recommend. Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Jody, for coming on the show and sharing some insights, some wisdom. I wrote down so many notes. I don't even know where to start, but I think I want to end with how the definition of happiness that you said, happiness is that feeling that you don't want anything to be different than it is. And do you feel like you are there right now? Do you feel like, or you try to be anyway?
I feel that right now in this moment. Yes. I try to be there. Yeah. It's a beautiful feeling.
Great definition. And where can we find you, by the way?
You can find me at Jody Moore Coaching. And you can find my podcast is Better Than Happy.
We'll put that in the show notes and your book as well. They can find that on Amazon or your website.
Called Better Than Happy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.